the height of its glory now. Like this is what I'm talking about. If you can, like, of course it's raining, but if you get a little bit of a sense of just like this radiating quality of those blossoms, they're starting, some of them moved into making berries at this point, but some of these are just, you know, ideal for harvesting, like this. That's gorgeous, huh? So there's also a story that if you sleep under the elders on the midsummer night, that the veil between the worlds are very thin, and you're more likely to see little fairies or spirits, and I have done it. Also, if you use this on midsummer night, then you have forever beautiful skin, or use it more often. Anyway, the flowers, particularly what I do, you like to use it for, is for congestion, and maybe like a hay fever kind of thing, or so it's decongesting. I like to use the elderflower for that, and also goldenrod, which seems a little contradictory because a lot of people feel like they're allergic to goldenrod, which some people might be, but I usually ask people when they tell me that, find out from your doctor what the Latin name is that you're allergic to, because it's usually not one of the solidarias, it's usually ragweed or something that's blooming at the same time. It's a much smaller, inconspicuous plant, and then the goldenrod is up in the height of its glory, and people think, oh, that's what's causing me all the trouble. But really, it's not an airborne pollen, so most people are not allergic to that, and it's actually very decongesting. So I blend them together, or just use them singly.
How do you blend in water?
Yeah, for tea, or you could make a tincture. You could make, later we're going to make a tincture in an alcohol-based product, and you could put some of each in, which we do have a little. Some of your goldenrod is just starting to bloom, so I don't know. You have put a bit of goldenrod, so that's one thing that I thought today. We're going to make a tincture, and you're going to, hopefully we'll get to a point where you have a little choice of what you want to make. We could pick a little elderflower and goldenrod, and then that could be used for decongesting, or also for that, because the fluids are nice to drink a lot. A nice big warm tea, you know, even making a quart, just sipping on that all day. This is for somebody who's really got red eyes and their nose just keeps going, you know. So that's a really good herb for that. The elderflower is also diaphoretic, so it opens the pores and it helps you to sweat. So that's going to help bring down a fever. And then these lovely flowers are going to turn into berries. And then the berries are, what they're most well known for is their antiviral. If you remember back to your biology classes, and if you remember viruses, viruses can't reproduce in and of themselves. When they enter the body, they have to get inside the cell and kind of take over. I think of it kind of like Star Trek or something. They get into the spaceship and they take over controls, and then they do their thing, and then they multiply like crazy, and then they take over, you know. And when you start to feeling achy and whiny, and that's when they're just really starting to multiply. But if you know you're being exposed to something, and you can catch it earlier on, or maybe you're sending your kid to daycare and you know everybody's got a cold there, just give them some elderberry, and I like to use echinacea as well that way. But so the elderberry has a constituent in it that inhibits the virus from being able to enter into the cell. So that's kind of cool, I think. Yeah, so taking the elderberry regularly during colds and flu times, even if you've started to get it, you know, you can still, the elderberry might lessen the length of time you have it. And then the leaves we don't use internally; they're a bit toxic that way, but they can be used a little for just sore, like sprains or something, you know, just something that's sore topically, kind of like we talked about with the comfrey. You'd make a poultice. And then the bark and the roots are a laxative, strong laxative. So not something you want to take a lot of regularly unless you really need it. Some people make wands, magic wands with it.
You want to do a little harvest of it? To give people an example, like what you would mean by the optimal flower?
Okay, so hopefully we're going to make sure that you guys have time to come back out and harvest. So yeah, so this one's already, you know, it's starting to get in its mode to be making the berries, and yeah, Bob picked out a beauty. Look at that. And ideally, we wouldn't harvest on a day like today because it's wet, but we still could make it better. Sometimes you have to wave things out, you know. I like to harvest with the new moon. I like to always have time to do, you know, we all have busy lives, and if you have a day to make medicine, you know, you do the best you can. But so you come out, and this is definitely a beautiful, beautiful time. And yeah, so we don't really need any leaves for this. We just come and I just snip it like that. And if I'm harvesting a big basket because I'm going to sell it or make a big tincture or something, then I just have a big basket and throw them. And these dry so easy. They really dry easy. So you just put them on a screen or in a big basket. And when we dry things, ideally we want it between like 90 degrees to 110 and some airflow. And if it's perfect conditions, you can have it in the sun a little bit, but ideally we put it someplace where it's a little shaded. And these are kind of delicate, so I would want them not in, you want them in a darker place. But get a little spider on there. I'll put him back on something else. So, yeah, so that would be a nice thing to work with today because it is kind of in the height of its glory. And this is a really beautiful place that is, sometimes I say they like to have their feet wet a bit, but there's not really a brook or a...
There's some wet spots. I mean, they've moved. We started out, we got an order from the state, about 25 trees, shrubs. These, when we first got here 15 years ago. And there's still some there, but they've migrated.
So they do that. They kind of like will die out, but then the new shoots come right up. And
birds are moving them too, I feel like.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
they're finding the spots they like. There's definitely, there's good water down here.
Mm-hmm. So often you might see them around a pond, or you might see them in on a dirt road where there's like a ditch. So I'm not saying they're in the pond or in the ditch, but where they're getting a lot of moisture, they tend to like that. Versus if you, and it is a bit protected here too. If you had these out, I've seen somebody, Rosemary, she had several elders. They kept trying to put it out by this labyrinth that was in an open meadow, and they never thrived there. So.
They definitely choose where they like first.
And then there is a red elder, but the red elder is, I don't use it for medicine. I've heard some people, but most people say it's a bit toxic. The red elder is going to bloom much earlier in the year. It kind of has a plume for a blossom, and then the berries would be totally red at this point of the year, and they're red. And these berries are never going to be red. They're going to move right into, dark and then turn blackish purple, purplish black. So you can tell the difference that way. But give these back and steal them. Okay.
What about the berries being completely ripe?
What about them?
Yeah, because sometimes you look at the umbel and they're mostly ripe.
Yes.
But some of them are not. Do you worry about?
No, not too much. In fact, some people think it's not a good idea to eat a lot of them fresh because there's a little bit of a toxicity to the seed or something. Okay. And I eat a little fresh, and I certainly cook them and put them in pies or muffins or whatever. But eating a lot fresh, I mean, it's not quite, I'm just not as tempted to. I don't think people, like when I go harvest my blueberries, sorry to say, I eat about a quart before I get them in, But if you ate that many, I'd probably be too much fresh elderberries. But I definitely use them. But what is the trouble if you don't pick them right away? What happened with you? The birds get them, right?
The birds just clean me out
while
I was on vacation.
It's really hard when you're waiting for them to get to that perfect place, and then the birds know, and then they're, so you just get out there and pick them. But I always leave some for the birds because think of them, they're going on their big migration. They need their immunity too. So anyway.
One thing, maybe helpful hint on harvesting them, if you just want the berries, they can be difficult to remove. So what we like to do is freeze them, and then they come off really much easier.
That's a good idea,
once
too.
they're little, almost like ball bearings. You can just knock them off.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the edibility, it's one of the few things that the pigs will not eat. I mean, it is the very last things in their field. So there might be something to this toxicity. I used to eat them by the handful, and of course I'm fine, but... Well, anyway.
I think cooked, and then when we use them in syrup, like we make a great elderberry syrup is a classic, and there's actually been a lot of research done on it because of a German company, Sambucus, this is Sambucus, probably Niagara, or that's the Latin for it, but there's been a lot of research on antiviral qualities for